Travis Wingoodsill. So everything is escalating now. I'm getting less time for myself because of this. Because of the urgent warning of the escalation. And I called it. It's the trigger event I've been warning about for years, actually. We're waiting for a trigger event, I said. In the history of the world, there have been revolutionary movements, many of which were the result of an authoritarian regime murdering an innocent woman. And we now got it. The trigger event is here. Kash Patel has been ordered by President Trump, who is screaming to arrest everyone in Minnesota, to declare martial law and occupy Minnesota, locking everybody up in concentration camps. So Kash Patel has now taken over the investigation to quash it. To just have it disappeared like the Jeffrey Epstein files. Less than 1% was released after the court orders. And that less than 1% was big enough as it was. And yes, both of these incidences, Minnesota and Epstein, both involve the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When Trump took over for his second coming, I put in all the clips from his inaugural address about what he was going to do in 2025. And I face-palmed watching all the various news channels on how they were playing dumb and clueless. And here we are. So there were a number of attempts to cause a trigger event by Trump. All of them failed. Even Charlie Kirk and his assassination was an attempt to cause this event. And sure enough, the ties of Turning Point to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are far bigger than I had realized, as I am provided with information about the connections of Turning Point employees with the church, not just being at the UVU with 3,000 Mormons recording the kill shot that goes live worldwide. But in that event, the professional, licensed press, even all over the world, who obtained that same kill shot footage, refused to show the kill shot. And so unless you're one of us who obtained the original kill shot video, you never see the kill shot. You don't see the trajectory of where the shot came from because the news cut it off right before, or would blur it out so that you could not see the physical evidence of the crime. And it's important in Charlie Kirk's case because the prosecution is proceeding with a case against Tyler Robinson for the death penalty. Tyler Robinson, Mormon. There were Mormons working for Turning Point. Charlie Kirk is assassinated. Candace Owens is exposing some problems that are disturbing. And a Mormon is getting framed and blamed for it. And yeah, the FBI stepped in, but it was a joint operation. But again, if you did not see the kill shot video, you only know what the news reports, which is what the FBI, Cox, and the prosecution are telling us. That Tyler Robinson premeditatively came to the UVU and perched himself on the roof of the Luze building with his grandfather's rifle from World War I. And made the shot in the C2 vertebrae from that distance. They are expecting you to not check the map of the grounds of the UVU. Even though the local or the national professional news all showed us maps in the beginning. But then when the prosecution filed documents and came out with the press conference, C2 vertebrae, you were all supposed to forget about the map. Cover up. Tyler Robinson didn't do it. The assassin got away. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is all over this. Fingerprints and blood samples galore. And so, Minnesota. They're already upset with Walsh and Omar. And wouldn't you know it, a Mormon, Brother Shirley, who's now getting the daytime interviews in, is the one who faked a video to be popular on YouTube to make false accusations that aren't true, which got to the attention of the president because of the 2 million views on YouTube, and they ran with it. Fox News helping to push that there's something there when there isn't. And so, an escalated presence of ICE, escalated violent threats to Minnesota, calls for impeachment, calls for prosecution, calls for rounding everybody up. And then the kill shot that nobody edited. that was also shown unedited all around the world. But they're still not calling her a Mormon wife and mother. A U.S. citizen still. And the FBI is stepping in and taking over and kicking out the state investigators. A direct call from the president to lock up everybody and cover up and hide the execution of a Mormon mom. Because the outrage got too severe. Because we all saw the kill shot, unedited. There are even some news stations that covered a bit before. So you see that she's lost. And she's stuck on the street, and so she's stopped, trying to get cars to go by her while she tries to figure out where she needs to go. And then ICE pulls up, and you can hear her say from her car, window rolled down, "What's going on?" And they come to her and approach her. And so she thinks, I got to get out of their way. The other guy gets in front of her, so she can't go forward. So she backs up. And the other guy is going for her door. And so she backs up enough so that she can go around the other ICE official. He then shoots her in the face. They weren't doing an operation there. There's no scheduled operation there. It's a city neighborhood. And she was lost. Wrong place, wrong time. A sitting duck. And she was assassinated. And those late night TV shows that did their recording or live performance last night covered it. Seth Meyers did his earlier, so he missed it. He'll most likely cover it for tonight. It's Thursday, yeah. Jimmy Kimmel covered it. And Stephen Colbert interviewed Chris Hayes from MS Now to talk about it. And now it's getting covered up. Because everybody saw what happened and knows that ICE is in the wrong. And now they're covering it up. And Trump is calling for the rounding up of everybody. Yeah, this is not gonna de-escalate anything. Now, whether or not people obey Trump's orders to lock everybody up, that's unclear. Whether people rise up for the FBI covering it all up and hiding it, like the Epstein files. But my being a Mormon, warning Mormons of the danger of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, gives me a unique perspective on the bigger picture. And if it hadn't have been for Max C's cyber terrorist attack on me, twice, the algorithms would not have gone into chaos mode and allowed the breakout video. Evil never understands. So let me give you some background about how the church is directly responsible for all of this. Again. 1838. Joseph Smith, having been chased out of Kirtland by Mormons who found out that they're not actually Christian. They were lied to by the missionaries who told them we're Christian. We're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We believe in the Bible. And so, when Joseph Smith gets the Kirtland Temple built, he then calls for Mormons to gather to Kirtland, to the temple, in similitude for the Latter-day Gathering that is supposed to take place, but not if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so these Christians who come to Kirtland find out about a Book of Mormon. That's not Christian. A Bible, we've got a Bible, and we need no more Bible. They find out that there's a prophet leading the church. That's not Christian. Visions and revelations ceased with the apostles. And now there's a temple. What the hell? That's not Christian. And it's not the Church of Christ. It's the Church of the Latter-day Saints. Changed in 1834. Yeah, they revolted. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints calls it the Kirtland apostasy. They just won't tell you what I just told you. And yeah, the Salt Lake Tribune covered the death of the person responsible for the Joseph Smith papers, which is how I'm able to find out all of this information. And yet, the Salt Lake Tribune didn't cover about what was in the Joseph Smith papers that I have been doing all this time, that destroys the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I've never understood, why did they put this out? Was it just expecting Mormons not to go to it, and it was just to shut up Gerald and Sandra Tanner, Gerald being dead, but Gail Miller paying for it, and thus the revenge against Sandra Tanner. Cat fight thing going on between the two of them, I guess. Sandra may have taken away her boyfriend Gerald when they were in high school. I don't know. Maybe Gail is just pissed because Sandra is an apostate, which is the more likely scenario. But regardless. So Joseph Smith is writing a visionary account. Thus, it's not literal history. And so he starts off in verse 1, that there are evil disposed and designing militant missionaries lying about his church of the Latter-day Saints. Yeah, you need to use the Joseph Smith papers and not the publication by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because Willard Richards made some changes to cover it up. And so in verse 19, all missionaries do not read this to investigators, especially if you're Christian. because it talks about the very first creed of Christianity that created it, that Pope Leo finally confessed 4 months late last year. So Joseph Smith is true. Pope Leo confirmed it. Daniel chapter 2, Christians are the feet. Oops. Means that Christianity is not true. Joseph has written. This was published, thus edited by Joseph Smith in 1842 in the Times and Seasons. Joseph Smith got to edit this. So nobody can claim that he didn't edit this and know what he was doing. You know, like changing the name of the church that Joseph put in. He put it in 1842. So yeah, section 115, forged document. Joseph says that he must not join a Christian church, for they are all wrong. That all their creeds, starting with the very first that branches out to all the others, are all an abomination. So Jesus appeared to Joseph Smith to say this? No. The first creed of Christianity created Jesus as a literal history character during the Roman period of time. The Jews who wrote the original documents were not writing literal histories. It was not their journals. They were wondering about Daniel chapter 2 before the feet were created. While they were during the Roman period of legs of iron. And then soon thereafter, relatively speaking, came the feet of Constantine to create Christianity. And so anybody professing that Jesus is the Christ, that Christianity is true, are all corrupt because of what they did in that first creed. To deny science, to rewrite history by turning it into literal history from the Jewish scriptures. And thus selected the approved Jewish documents that conformed and complied as close as possible with the right interpretation and changing of definitions of words to the first creed. All this in 1838. It did not happen in the spring of 1820. It did not happen in 1823. That's why other people's hearsay journals or gossip cannot be trusted as primary sources. The Doctrine and Covenants indicates the first records from that time period as earliest as possible. And then Joseph Smith's 1838 history. Any other history is by somebody else making the claim. Hearsay. Can't trust it. So, 40 years later, the Brighamites wrote in their journals on paper and mingled them with 40 years previous paper of writing with faded ink, combined them into a book called a journal, and we get this in July of 1838. As Joseph already was writing the visionary accounts. They even talk about it in here. This is not by Joseph, because it's 40 years later after he's dead. And we get this. Thus far, according to the order of the Danites. They put it in 1838. After the Kirtland incident, where the Christian Mormons were furious that it's the Church of the Latter-day Saints. The Order of Latter-day Saints. When they thought it was the Order of Jesus. Those Christians stayed behind in Kirtland and created the Old Standard Church of Christ, so that they disavow themselves of Joseph Smith and reestablish a real Christian church, which Joseph then goes on to say in 1838, all wrong, all abominable, all corrupt. We have a company of Danites. So this is going contrary to Joseph Smith's religion. This is the order of Dan, not the order of Latter-day Saints. In these times, to put to rights physically, Order of Nehor, Alma chapter 1. That which is not right, they are the judges. They are the Danites. Hebrew translation. And to cleanse the church. They'd already done that by lying as missionaries to others who converted to what they thought was Christianity, and then apostatized when they came to Kirtland. This is all part of their plot to cleanse Joseph's church of Joseph Smith. Because now they are in Missouri and are working on the next phase of their operation. They believe that Joseph Smith is a false prophet with very great evils and is unable to be put to rights by teachings and persuasions. Then they refer to the salt sermon that Sidney Rigdon gave when they officially organized themselves in the background as a secret combination in 2 companies of 10s commanded over by their captain. And so Avard is the most famous one of them, but he was just a lesser captain or a lieutenant over a group of 10s maybe. But no, he was not Brigham Young. So yes, the Joseph Smith Papers shows how Brigham Young exalted himself to take over the church in Joseph Smith's absence. And so Thomas B. Marsh was then involved as he has his immortal government document, the affidavit that resulted in the Mormon extermination order, cleansing the church of very great evils. Mission accomplished. And so he talks about these Danites, and the Danite Journal confirms it 40 years later. Except for George Albert Smith, who lied to Mormons in this valley, saying that Thomas B. Marsh was excommunicated before this for defending his wife's honor over milk stripping stolen from Rigdon's wife. And yet, he's still the president of the Quorum of the 12. And depending on when Mormon apologists working for the church tamper with the Wikipedia page on it, he was excommunicated by Brigham Young, who had no authority to excommunicate, on the 17th of March, 1839, while Joseph Smith was in Liberty Jail still. So, yeah, Joseph didn't excommunicate him, as George Albert Smith lied about. That both Hinckley and Monson got up at the pulpit of General Conference to spread that lie, to justify putting Mormons in their place, physically putting Mormons to rights, and to justify the Strengthening Church Members Committee, which is that secret combination physically putting to rights Mormons who are straying from the covenant path. And so, yes, oaths are involved. Thomas B. Marsh is exposing everything that the current Brighamite Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been involved with in this affidavit. The secret blood oath atonement, covenant path oaths, yeah, Danites are the origin of it. Adamon Diamond for the coup of Jesus against Lucifer of the United States of America, yeah, Danites. The storehouse treasury of Jesus, not for the poor, section 119, yeah, Danites. All of these are forged documents. Section 115, section 116, section 117, section 118, section 119, section 124 and 28, about baptisms for the dead, you know, because Adamon Diamond and the burning that they are going to cause. Because I forgot this. Second vision, Joseph Smith. He is writing about they, the Mormon Christians, called Danites, evil disposed and designing militant persons who put Jesus Christ in the name of his church. Oh, Willard Richards, are going to come and burn people to self-fulfill Malachi's the day that shall burn as an oven. And it was supposed to be, according to George Albert Smith of more modern times, the president of the church, who said it was going to be a nuclear attack for the trigger event. That failed. Again. So yes, the enemy has been planning this for 200 years and have been failing. We're getting there. And so they tell Thomas B. Marsh, we plan on taking the United States of America. We, the Danites, plan on taking the United States of America. We're going to coup it. And ultimately the whole world. This is their 200-year-old plot to self-fulfill biblical prophecy of Armageddon. They know the astronomy, calendar dates, and clock times given by John in the book of Revelation. Even though it appears like they didn't know when I sent them the letter. But they knew then, and that seems to be why they then ran a test run in 2020 instead. We're not there yet. And I took it off the screen. So, Joseph Fielding Smith Sr., The Way to Perfection. The Gathering at Adam-on-Diamond by Voice of the Priesthood, page 291. This council in the valley of Adam-on-Diamond is to be of the greatest importance to this world. There was no Adam-on-Diamond. Joseph Smith didn't call it Adam-on-Diamond. It was a forged document 40 years later by the Danites in their journal. Put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died, along with some others that are also from 1838. Remember? Section 115, Section 116, there's Adam-on-Diamond. Section 115 is the name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Section 117 is Newell K. Whitney with as bishop with the storehouse in Adam-on-Diamond. Then 18 and 19 is tithing, came out immediately after Brigham Young had assassinated Joseph Smith in Carthage jail. And then 132 also is a part of the forged documents. That replaced the final year before Brigham Young died, the Joseph Smith's 1835 section on monogamy. The church has lied so much about polygamy of Joseph Smith. When I keep going over with you the little black book of Brigham Epstein. Brigham sealed by proxy Joseph Smith to all those women. None of them were Joseph's wives. Brigham did it in the Nauvoo Temple in 1846, 2 years after Joseph was assassinated. All of it is lies. And here they are confirming the coup, but they've encoded it so that the Mormons who've come to the valley and are raised up, Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. is the son of Hiram Smith, who was assassinated. And the one who ordered the assassination, Heber C. Kimball, is raising him now. He never found out that his father was assassinated by the guy who gave the order, who's raising him. And so they are telling him and all other Mormons the coding. Because in the art of war, you don't want the enemy, even if you're the enemy, to have your secrets exposed so that they know what you're planning to do against them. So you encode your communications. This is a war terrorist plot on the United States of America. And Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. has been taught the encoding of it. And so he says, this council in the valley of Adam-on-Diamond is to be of the greatest importance to this world. At that time, there will be a transfer of government authority from the usurper and impostor Lucifer, which that kind of surprised me because the Mormon myth indicated that Lucifer was not even going to be there. He can't stand the glory of Jesus. the fact that he has the keys of government was also a shock. To the rightful king, Jesus Christ. Mormon Jesus is not the same as Homoousion Trinity Jesus of Christians from the First Creed. Our Jesus is separate and independent, with a body of flesh and bones as tangible and yet still supernatural, defying the laws of physics and science and logic. And so this is how they're going to do the coup in code. The President of the United States of America will transfer authority to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And nobody is supposed to know about this. It's a secret. Shh. So the church had made sure to have that book hidden. It took me a while to find it. I had known about the myth because the church hid it. So in the Book of Mormon, we also are told, because remember, the Book of Mormon ain't literal history. It is the warning voice of this evil plot to overthrow the United States of America and ultimately the entire world. Even though this is only for those who join the church. Nobody else in the world wants it. Because they were lied to about it. See, originally it would be a regular science fiction or historical fiction in this particular case that people would read if they're into science fiction. And at the time in the early 1800s, everybody was into reading anything about natives coming from Jerusalem. So yes, this appealed to the masses at the time. Nowadays, no, nobody cares about this kind of storyline. It's like the critics about Andromeda. Star Trek, sure, yeah, they love it, and they've got their extreme Trekkies. But Andromeda, Nonetheless, one character finally revealed who she is. Yeah, it's a little far-fetched, but it's fiction. It's supposed to be far-fetched. It's not literal history. And so, this is code, because the enemy can't know that their code, their plot, is getting exposed here. But they did find out. Heber C. Kimball knew. His whole Wikipedia thing on Masonry reveals he's the enemy and that he knows the plot. And thus why they turned the Book of Mormon into literal history. Just like a Christian would do. And so this is not literal history. This did not happen in America. This is the plot to destroy America in the latter days. Now behold, I will show unto you that they did not establish a king, president, over the land, an election year. The election was supposed to be so much of a chaos that no president would be inaugurated on the 20th of January. The date that they have here by Bruce R. McConkie is 30 AD. And so in 34 AD, AD 34, it shouldn't be AD, it should be CE. That's when you have the sign of the death in the heavens, which comes from Revelation chapter 19. You know, Jesus on the back of the flying white horse from outer space. Yeah, we can't call it a sign in the heavens because that would mean it has a calendar date and clock time. And as I again got a comment today from a stupid Mormon who does not study, illiterate, no man knows the day or the hour. Again, when you understand Christians compiled the Bible, which means they did some editings just like Willard Richards did to Joseph Smith. He put it in because the day and hours are all over it, and the enemy knows this and are using that to coordinate their attacks in preparation for it. And so the sign was 8 April 2024, which means this is 2020, which means this is the 2020 election, which means the king is Trump, and he's not supposed to win the election. Wait, he didn't. But neither was Biden. I wonder what could have happened to allow Biden to be president. See how true the Book of Mormon is, Mormons, and even you ex-foes. But in the same year, yea, the 30th year, they did destroy upon the judgment seat, yea, did murder the chief judge of the land. I hope she wasn't murdered. I really liked her movie. She wasn't the chief judge, though, either. That's Roberts. And so obviously they failed. But you see Marjorie Taylor Greene here. The people were divided one against another, and they did separate one from another into tribes, states. A national divorce. Yep. That was the test run plan to fulfill this Book of Mormon prophecy. Of literal history truth. And so in verse 16 and 6, the regulations of the federal government were destroyed because of the secret combination of the friends and kindreds of those who murdered Joseph Smith and Hiram. The Danites and the Confederates, both of whom loved to display the inverted pentagram of their Lord and Master, Dallas Harris Oaks. Number 666. So, Trump's second coming to America Trump was put in after being threatened for his failure during the test run, which we should probably get to that first before we go into his failures for 2025 and why he's now escalating things. Oaks got leaked. Can't keep his mouth shut. If you are the enemy and what you're saying or what you're doing and planning for is a terroristic sedition, You kind of need to shut up about it, because now you're the weak link. But he assumed that this would never get out to the general populace, because it's encoded even. Mormons won't see it for what it actually is. So before everything hit the fan in all over the world and here in America in 2020, on the 14th of March, I had already served the church in the federal court. I was trying to save America. Yeah, even that Trump guy who bleep and bleep bleep is handing over the government to the church. Dumbass. What a loser. Trying to save his life, and he's just a loser. You hear this, Trump? You watching my video? You used to watch my website until the church shut it down. What the hell, man? You're now ordering a full lockup of Minnesota when I'm trying to save your life and you're blowing it again? The church is ordering him to do this because Oaks confesses they are in charge of everything that is going on. He tells them that what's going to happen in 2020 is not going to be the end of the world. You know, Armageddon. But merely a test. A trial run. All cute. He's using chiasmus, which John Welsh found is plagiarized in the Book of Mormon from the late war, and thus started Mormon apologetics for the second coming, the coup of America. And so, yep, creeping death from that Exodus story of an Exodus. The Jewish version of the latter days. The church made out like bandits from their stock investments, controlling all companies around the world in the trillions of dollars. Because it ain't just tithing. And the coup attempt on America. They purposely had Trump lose so that Trump would then cause the vacation to smear poop on the walls of the Capitol. Whatever. Whatever. We all saw the live video footage, especially at the hearing where they showed the Capitol footage of Mitt Romney having to run for his life. Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was going to assassinate Mitt Romney. Where was Mike Lee? Where was he when all of this was hitting the fan? Oh, he was hiding like a little baby because he knew what was going on and was on the call. And then afterward, when his text messaging got caught, he tried to lie about it. Baby. Direct descendant of an original Danite, whom we all know very well. The murderer of women and children, John D. Lee, who was the clerk, by the way, for the marriages of the dead Joseph Smith to women. And so, yes, everything that's been happening all this time, all these 2 centuries, have been orchestrated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And here it is in the Book of Mormon, encoded. And all Mormons are clueless of this because they believe the lies of the church that this is literal history, that we're Christian, that Jesus is the Christ. And they just ignore verse 19 of the first vision. That Jesus isn't really Jesus of Christians, he's the true Jesus. Like a dog to his vomit. So yes, we are repeating the patterns of 2020 because of this. 2020 was the test run. And here we go, this ain't the test run anymore. And so the years got moved up because of it. This was already supposed to have happened. 2020 was not supposed to be the test run. And so the only reason that might explain it, other than my filing in the federal courts, exposing it, and Bill Barr refusing to do anything about it, and thus it happened, was that Mitt Romney failed to become the president. Because it would have been Mitt Romney's second term's finish for 2020 if he'd gotten reelected, which he most likely would have. And so Mitt Romney would not be able to run for a third term, and yet he's supposed to be the president during this, as the election gets so out of control that maybe Trump is running during this time and is causing it to make sure he wins. Just, everything gets bumped up. We don't know because it didn't happen. Mitt Romney lost to Obama. Oakes had 2 opportunities to become the chief judge, and he failed too. So yes, things got a little skewed in this 200-year-old plot. Nonetheless, it's all getting exposed, but only by me. So yes, it's not a coincidence that Charlie Kirk was assassinated here in Utah. It is not a coincidence that a Mormon lied about Minnesota, and that escalated it until finally a Mormon has now been executed in Minnesota. And now the FBI is covering it up as Trump is ordering the lockup of everyone. This is not a drill. This is not a test run. This is it. And the trigger event just got triggered.